a back room that kept track of what was really happening, and he had one set of books for each client independently. If you could provably say this is the single ledger, it's never ever happened. The first thing that happened right after someone invented a double entry ledger, someone invented a way of doing two of them. Bitcoin stops that. So blockchain is the system that enables that, but it works on an economic incentive model. You can't separate the two. It's not about the money, it's about the incentives. So it's not just about that. It is for micropayments. And if you're talking small pages and transfers, yes. If you're talking about a system that enables logging, yes. But you need both, and you can't separate them. It's like saying, if I can take the internet and move it over there, and I can put the web pages over there, and I can have them as separate systems. You can't.
So it seems like the important feature of Bitcoin network or Metanet is the write once and read many, right? But what is the...
That's one of many, yes. But
yeah, but what is the advantage over the Oracle server you mentioned about, which we can do the same thing?
Cost. So right now, if you're doing EDI transactions, they will cost you somewhere based on volume between $50 cents and $4 US. If you're doing SWIFT, expensive. If you're doing credit cards, debit cards, you're talking 15 cents or something like that for a purchase or more. Start thinking, what happens if it's not 15 cents, if it's 1/10 of a cent or less? Right now, when you use your Oyster card, approximately 30 cents, in the UK, sorry, I'm not sure what you call them over here, but the transport cards. When you go through the train and you tap your thing, 15 to 30 cents goes to Oyster. And they make a lot of money. So in your $1.20 or £1.20 transfer in the tube, a quarter of that goes to a technology company. What if we could make it 1/10 of a cent? Doesn't sound much, but imagine people who aren't earning much. They've now had a benefit because that costs them a lot of money. I mean, for me, that's nothing. But for people like I remember I used to be when I was a kid, when I was poor, that $1 a day, it's a lot of money.
Hello. So you talked about how transparency is essentially checks and balances against corruption and against essentially unlawful behavior. But if transactions get complicated, if the structure of whatever application you use Bitcoin for gets too complex for interpretation by, I guess, the common person who doesn't know how to code, who doesn't know, then how do you... doesn't that leave a loophole for interpretation of, essentially the facts as they're kind of...
No. Bitcoin is a predicate. That's a complex word that confuses the hell out of people. Basically, that means it is either true or false. It's like me. It's binary. My wife will give you all these things and tell me out there, but she'll confirm I'm basically one or the other, and so is Bitcoin. And that's important. Bitcoin doesn't do X or Y or Z or ABC or whatever else. It doesn't have all these flipped states. When it settles, and it's in the blockchain, it's definitive. It is or it isn't. And you can analyze that. It's a graph network. So if you, I won't go into the technology behind it, but graph networks are analyzable. Actually, back in 2008, and actually before that in 2007, the same thing, I presented a number of things to Google where I was talking about all of this. So I was talking about creation of perceptrons and neural networks and what we now call AI, machine learning, and how all this can help. And I went to a Google thing where I was the talker and I presented to a whole lot of Google people who told me, this is stupid, perceptrons are old technology that failed. And because everyone ignored me, I've been patenting the hell out of all this stuff. And Google now basically give large six-figure sums to anyone who can spell neural networks and perceptrons. So it's funny how if you're a little bit ahead of this, it gets you there. But you can actually code up all of this and just click a button and get an answer. So you don't need to know. And that's what really matters here. We shouldn't be making people be techies. We should be making it simple. It should be so that you don't care what's under the hood. The internet became valuable and powerful when people didn't care. Back in the 90s, when anyone had to muck around to connect to the internet, it was crap. It was only silly buggers like me who kept going. When it's easy, when my grandmother can do it, and not know when it's plumbing and it works, that's what we're aiming for. So that's what I'm trying to build.
So I guess that's a good message to, a lot of the audience here was invited because they are industry innovators, leaders, executives or fintech industry, because the message of Bitcoin seems to be more for enterprise, for business, for entrepreneurs, for innovators, and not so much the whole, Bitcoin is a money system to overthrow world governments, and it's like I'm a sound money advocate, but the Miesian dream of like gold, e-gold, it's not really that, right?
Well, it can be, but it only gets there if it is used as an informational commodity. Bitcoin's a commodity. It's based on information. And if you don't put information on chain, if you don't use it, it's not much of a commodity. I mean, at the end of the day, there are many commodities like fluoridium. Not many people go out there and buy a can of fluoridium.
Is that in my toothpaste?
No, that's fluoride.
I'm not a chemist. Yeah. Okay. So I think given time constraints, and we do have food for everybody. So I do want to we want to encourage people obviously eat, mingle, talk. Just my little our little sort of summarize here. I mean, Bitcoin Association is here to help companies and people in this space to connect with folks like Dr. Craig, this company Enchain, which I think he's mentioned in passing a couple times, which is busy patenting everything in Bitcoin and blockchain as quickly as possible. We could talk about all the stuff that comes with the ins and outs and the goods and bads of patenting and how it's open source and anti-open source, but I'll leave that for...
Microsoft is open source, by the way, so is IBM. Everyone ignores that little fact. Open source does not mean free.
So we could definitely go on for a long time if we went into that part of the discussion, but I'll let you guys to ask Dr. Wright himself if you are interested in that aspect. But we do have to say that unfortunately BSV, the original fork of Bitcoin, or the original Bitcoin, the other ones are forks, as you always put it.
Correct.
Because it is just a matter of perspective.
The confusing thing happened because of Ethereum. Ethereum kept the ticker when it forked, and everyone admitted that, and that's where all this started. So they started Ethereum and Legacy Ethereum, or Ethereum Classic, right. And the exchanges / bucket shops in many cases, because if you don't follow the laws and you don't follow process, you're a bucket shop, started just reallocating what ticker symbols would be based on, you've made a change, but hey, you pay us more.
So basically, what you're saying is BSV is like Bitcoin Classic. It's the original Bitcoin, and the other ones just kept the BTC ticker.
Well, sort of, but I don't like the way that sort of goes with Ethereum and all the rest. But yeah.
Yeah. So what I was saying was like BSV is unfortunately still not whitelisted in Japan because we have a process is good, and Japan has a very arduous process, very thorough process for whitelisting cryptocurrencies or assets to be traded on exchanges here for a very good reason, because there's been very many cryptocurrencies which had no business being traded because they were just purely speculative assets, which made a lot of people lose money. BSV is not traded in Japan yet because it is not whitelisted, and this is something that we hope to work towards and change, because there is a lot of hopefully the message we're getting across is Bitcoin is for use, right? And for people to use it, they need to be able to get it somehow.
And eventually that'll happen because you'll be able to buy small amounts. Not going to exchanges, but you could go to Google and give them a credit card and make a $1 transaction or 100 yen transaction or whatever else, and pay a bit of fees because credit cards, and then use it instead of ads. That's what I'm hoping. And over time, I hope the nature of all of this, with large companies starting to do things like EDI, EDI over blockchain, or as the company calls BDI, is something that I issued patents for that'll be granted soon, allowing us to start doing global sort of commercial logistics and all the rest. And with full traceability, all the promises people have been saying that blockchain will deliver. And I apologize, I haven't done this earlier, but the reality is if I just put the technology out there, then someone would run out and do another shitcoin and scam people with tokens and make false promises they never intended to deliver. So you can like patents or hate them, but the only way I saw around that was to basically patent the technology I'm inventing.
Well, but it is worth mentioning before we finish off that there is the open BSV license, right? Because you do want to allow enough companies to use this without having to pay exorbitant fees.
Many, actually most of the patents I'm filing, we're giving away for free if you use them on BSV. So you can implement it on Ethereum and pay me money. Or you can screw me over by doing it on BSV and not paying me a cent.
So I think that's the probably very important point for companies looking into the space. Like, hey, I want to do a blockchain project. I don't really want to deal with millions of dollars of patent licensing fees. Sorry, but if you do it on BSV, which is you obviously want to encourage a growth of the ecosystem to grow in a way that that is part of the vision. Then it wouldn't be a stumbling block. It wouldn't be an obstacle for enterprises.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, we haven't solved getting into tens of millions of transactions a second yet. We're still working on that.
That's the Australian sarcasm there. That's a lot. That's a big number.
But yeah, I mean, Ethereum's up there with 100 per second or something like that. So yeah, we've got that. We've got tens of thousands we'll be able to deliver. But I am working hard, and I promise I'll keep working hard on the tens of millions until we do that.
You did say, I keep remembering these little facts, so I keep pushing forward the end of the speech, but you did say 50 transactions for every human on planet Earth. Did you not at some point?
Correct.
So 50 transactions for every human being on planet Earth is the scaling goal of BSV.
Every day.
Every day, right. For every day, not yeah, right, of course.
Yeah, so I actually want to get more than that. I plan to retire sometime after I hit the multiple billions per second. After that, I think I'll be old and crusty enough that other people can do it much better.
Okay, on that note, I'd like to basically take this to a close. We'll open up the food, and feel free to mingle. Please ask Dr. Wright any other questions. I do also want to give thanks to folks who helped organize this really short notice. Ken Shishido from the MetaNet Society, over there in the back.
Thank you very much, Ken.
And while we break out for drinks and food, Ken will make for any of you who are technical or really interested in the community, he has a presentation of all the actual projects, pretty much a summation of all the a lot of the startups and the companies in BSV right now who are building real stuff. And he'll have